High school relationships are important. I mean, they build character, they show how people how to interact and stuff like that. Sometimes high school students put too much importance in high school relationship. And like I think with everything with high school, it's a learning process. So later on, then you can make good decisions as you venture into very serious relationships.
Go.
How's my hair?
It's fine.
Is it good?
Go.
All right. So high school relationships, I mean, obviously they have pros and cons. Everything has pros and cons, really. But with high school relationships, I mean, yeah, they could be distracting, like especially during school. Like, oh, you could be doing homework, but you could be texting your date, or it could actually be really good. Like you're having a stressful day, like a lot of homework's piling up, finals. I know with me, with all these finals coming up, I just like talking with my girlfriend, and it just helps me get through the day, and it does
That's
help.
funny. I think some high school relationships actually can work out. It kind of depends on the maturity of both the people involved. I personally had a high school relationship for 4 long years, but we didn't end up together in the end. I went to college and he didn't. So I think high school relationships are actually probably good as long as they're healthy and they're full of like benefit for both people, and they're not takers. If they're both not takers and like mean people to each other, or if it's not a superficial relationship. Unfortunately, I think that happens a lot in high school where the relationships are just superficial.
I think it's a wonderful thing. I think that learning how to, like, if it's a relationship that might continue through life or continuing through there, I think it's a really like great like step in relationships, because I think that's kind of like the time when things get a little bit serious, kind of like as you grow up and stuff. Like I think that's the time when you're going through changes and you're going through things together, and I think that's really great.
I think that high school relationships, depending on, are you talking about romantic relationships or are you talking about friendships? I think that's very important to develop relationships in high school and maintain relationships. And also plan, I mean, having relationships that hopefully develop and maintain beyond high school. If it's more romantic type relationships, they can be a distraction, and they often are, but it's part of life. I mean, it's part of being a teenager, you know, it's part of high school.
Previous answer, yes, get involved in relationships. They can obviously venture into grow into a serious relationship, but this idea is like I believe high school. High school is about experiences, so you can make proper decisions about what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy.
I would tell my kids that they shouldn't make that a priority. When I came into high school, I definitely was like, okay, gotta get a girlfriend, gotta like start getting with those babes. But then, like, you know, you just start overworking yourself. You start worrying about every possible detail and every possible outcome, and then eventually it doesn't work out. That's what I did for about the first 2 years. Then I just kind of like laid back, kind of just be myself, not try to like actively go out and get one, and it just kind of came. So you just
Mother to an 8-year-old boy now who is so fun-loving and very social. So I feel like he probably won't have any trouble hanging out with girls or meeting girls or talking to them. So I think my advice to him would just be to remember to treat everyone, women, men, teachers, peers, with respect, and you know, try to get to know, before he dates someone, try to get to know the person, try to get to know who she is, or who the person is, before he decides that's the love of his life. And I probably would also give the advice to not put all your time into a high school relationship, because if it's meant to be, it's going to end up happening. To still do sports, to still work if you want to work, to do other things besides just have this one high school relationship that takes up your whole time.
Okay, so I would tell my kids in the future that to be careful in relationships, for sure, and like starting one, and to make sure that you know the person well, that you know like who they are fully and stuff, and to also you know, like education and stuff like that, and focusing on grades, like that's not like a big problem for me. It's you know, like if they're artistic and they want to do something like that, and they, you know, or like if they have time on their hands to like have a relationship and do it, like I really think that they I would make sure to tell them, you know, that they can do what they want, but to be careful.
I don't think locking them up helped, but no, I'm just kidding. I have 2 older daughters that are out of high school, and I have twin boys that are seniors in high school, and then I have a 3rd grade son. So different, you know, ends of the spectrum. The relationship going into high school right now, let's say if they were just going in, it would be number 1 to be honest with yourself. You know, be you and not be anything anybody else wants you to be. Develop relationships where you're communicating personally, face to face, over the phone, and not just through fingertips. You know, with social media and stuff like that. It's that, I think, as a real big piece where relationships are not as, I'd say, genuine. You know, spending time talking, getting to know each other, and being cautious, being, you know, always hang out in groups, because you never really know what's happening. You know, sometimes depending on how well you know somebody. It's also very important that you I guess as a dad, I want to be more overprotective. I want my kids to know who they're getting to know.
I think they're similar. Obviously, you guys got social media, so you develop relationships without face-to-face contact. So you do it through text messaging, and that's a big part of how you develop relationship. I don't see it very different before social media because a lot of times it wasn't face-to-face, especially a high school relationship. You did it on the telephone. But I still think you go in with the same self-esteem issues, the same lack of confidence that it was, you know, decades ago to where it is today.
Relationships are so different now, I think. I don't really know because I'm not inside a high school relationship right now. But when I was in high school, I feel like my boyfriend that I had spent a lot of time at my family's house, and I spent a lot of time at his family's house, and we really knew each other very well. There was social media obviously didn't exist, and text messaging didn't exist. So if I wanted to talk to him, we either had to see each other, find time to spend together, or we had to call on the phone. Communication is probably lacking the most in high school relationships today because there's such short text messages and things that can be misconstrued. I think.
I mean, the biggest piece I think is social media. I mean, that's one thing that is different about it, but. You know, there's still kids, you know, kissing in high school and holding hands, and you know, there's a lot of the same pressures, you know, that I see that kids are faced with. But I do believe that there's more education now than there was when I was in high school, and kids, I think, are smarter about making some choices and decisions. You know, I think just a lot of it is because of what's out there in the media and society about whether it be something dangerous having to do with diseases or, you know, if you're being too promiscuous, things like that. But courting is courting. You know, that's a word, I guess. I don't know if you guys use that word, but, you know, asking a friend, does so-and-so like me, and does so-and-so like you, that still happens, and that's not anything that's changed. But I think the biggest thing that's changed is information is fast. You know, before you're picking up the phone and you're calling somebody for a date, or you're, you know, trying to get up the excitement or the nerves to go face to face with somebody instead of texting somebody through a friend and then going out with somebody.